Arvell Reese's blend of violence and speed give Ohio State a dynamic weapon at the heart of its defense.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to your Thursday edition of Locked On Buckeyes, which is your daily Ohio State podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, veteran sports talk host, delivering passionate coverage about your Buckeyes. And during today's show, we will discuss the two most recent Buckeyes that lost their black stripes, as well as what James Laurinaitis said while he was hyping up the LB room. But first, Arvell Reese's blend of violence and speed give Ohio State a dynamic weapon at the heart of its defense, and what he brings to the table is something that's very unique. And it's also ideal for the Mike linebacker position because Arvell Reese is a very special talent. He is someone that James Laurinaitis had to pound the table to even keep him in the LB room because there was a thought that Arvell Reese was going to play on the edge. But no, Laurinaitis, even as a younger coach at Ohio State, made sure did what was needed to keep Arvell Reese in the linebacker room. And while he's staying in the linebacker room, he's also progressed in a good way. And when he figured out where he was going to play and he figured out how to play that position, there were some growing pains. There were some ups. There were some downs. There were some periods where he came off the field and he quickly acknowledged what he did wrong. But now he's going into another year at Ohio State. He's a full-time starter, no longer splitting time or being the first backup off the bench. This is his time period to shine. And Arvell Reese playing the mic, playing violent, playing fast, playing with his instincts that are at an elite level, allowing all of those things to flourish and to really manifest themselves on the field every single weekend. It's going to be fun to watch Arvell Reese because he is the kind of linebacker we've grown accustomed to seeing and we are used to having at Ohio State. Because if you think about simply the Ryan Day era, I'm not trying to talk bad about Ryan Day. I think it's just kind of the reality of the situation that there was a time period in Ryan Day's era of being a head coach that the linebacker position was not a strength. Within the history of Ohio State, the linebacker position is normally a strength. Their physicality, they play fast, they play angry, they hurt you. Those are the things you expect. But for some reason, there was a time period where the linebackers weren't playing fast. They weren't playing free. They weren't playing violent. You go from the tough Borland era to Still Chambers going from running back to linebacker to Tommy Eichenberg for a few years, and then the Cody Simon period. And then now you got Styles and Reese together. Going from Borland to now, you see the clear upward trajectory about how this room is getting better and better and better. And Borland earned the spot. It's just unfortunate that he wasn't the normal caliber of linebacker you want or the Buckeyes should have on the team. Eichenberg, Chambers, Simon, all really good players. But I still think there was a level. Now, Eichenberg got that level. Simon got you there. Cody Simon and Eichenberg, there were times where they were what you want in a Buckeye linebacker. The physicality, going in there and putting their nose right there in the muck of what's going on with the ball carrier and biting the ball with their helmet. Oh, ball is out. Why? Because they're not afraid. They play fearless on the football field. And now this year, I think you're going to get an even better pair at linebacker with Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese. And while Reese had to be a guy that Laurinaitis had to pound the table to keep him in the room, the same went for Sonny Styles. And want to talk more about that in the very next segment. But Laurinaitis had to do certain things with Sonny Styles so that he could coach Sonny Styles full time. But Arvell Reese was a topic that James Laurinaitis mentioned just a day ago during his media availability period. And Laurinaitis said Reese's violence and ability to run make this young man a freakish athlete. And he also went on to say this, quote, he can do a lot of different things that you dream of when you get to the linebacker position, end quote. And it's that part where you say doing a lot of different things that you dream of, because there are players out there that can do a lot of different things, but they're not things that you dream of one player doing. They're not. Some guys can play fast, but then while they're playing fast, their instincts don't go well and they make a few mistakes. Or some people have great instincts, but they can't play fast. Some can play fast, but they can't play violent. Some are violent, but they aren't really full of the greatest instincts. Arvell Reese is a total package. every single day, every single down. He is going to be in the right spot, fast, sideline to sideline, not afraid to get his nose down there and get dirty. This young man is what you want from a Buckeye linebacker. And recently, when Edric Houston went around, there was a video going around Ohio State's socials recently where Edric Houston was going around asking players who their Mount Rushmore of Buckeye players were. And it was kind of interesting to hear guys that were young say Jack Sawyer and Tuimoloau and Stroud and Marvin Harrison Jr. I think one person said Jackson Smith and Jigba. And a lot of players that have played in Ryan Day's era. And I'm not knocking them. They don't know the history. I think one person said James Laurinaitis, and I get it. He's one of your coaches. And I think it was a guy on the defense, so that makes even more sense. Nobody said Tim Walton. I wouldn't put Tim Walton in my Mount Rushmore, but even as a joke, it would have made a whole lot of sense as he is a former Buckeye. But Laurinaitis went back, way, way back to the 70s when he mentioned a player in his Buckeye Mount Rushmore. And it was a linebacker. And he said this individual was the greatest Buckeye linebacker in the history of the program. And this is coming from a man that was a 3-time consensus All-American in James Laurinaitis. But the individual he mentioned, and forgive me, his name's escaping me right now, at one point led Ohio State, had the most career tackles in Ohio State history. I think it was like 320 or 321. This is back in the 70s, mind you, when it was 3 yards in a cloud of dust where everybody was running the ball like crazy. You didn't have guys out here slinging the ball around like their Stroud or like their Joe Burrow. You didn't have guys doing that. No, it was run, run, run. So maybe you say, Jay, the numbers are inflated. No, I say that dude was a dog. 100%. That dude was a dog. And I believe that Reese is going to be a dog for Ohio State this year. What Arvell Reese brings to the table is very unique. You should want a linebacker that plays fast. You should want a linebacker that plays free. You should want a linebacker that plays violent. Whatever the hierarchy is in that, make it. But when you make it, put it in a blender, and you want someone that has all three of those that do them every single play, that is Arvell Reese. And for Laurinaitis to say these things, that he has different traits that you dream of, watch out. Because the Buckeyes defense is not going to have a lot of the same faces it had a year ago. A lot of guys that are going to be on this unit will be inexperienced. In Reese being a first-time starter, Styles not inexperienced, but behind him, who's going to be inexperienced? Jalen McClain, Malik Hartford, Dre Matthews Jr. is getting a different role, first-time starter for him. So there are a lot of guys that are new faces, but they're really talented. And when you have a guy like Arvell Reese on the Buckeyes defense, that's going to help everybody's nerves and anxiety go down. That's going to allow their trust in the mic to go up. That's going to allow Laurinaitis' Patricia's communication to Arvell Reese, who was the signal caller for the Buckeyes defense. I assume he will be. It could be Sonny Styles, but I think it's going to be Arvell Reese. It's going to allow everything to be a lot smoother. But if you are Arch Manning, or if you are Demond Williams of Washington, or if you are Bryce Underwood of Michigan, or Drew Aller of Penn State, if you are one of those quarterbacks that's going to look out there in the middle and say, oh, I can attack you, they might not say they can attack you because Arvell Reese is that good. You know who else is that good? The players in James Laurinaitis' room, because this young man didn't hold back while hyping up the players in his room. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Once again, are you new to FanDuel? If you are, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Thank you all for tapping Locked on Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. We are inching closer to another milestone right here on the show. We are about 50 subscribers away from getting 5,000 subscribers on the YouTube for Locked on Buckeyes. So stop what you're doing, unless you're driving, and hit that subscribe button if you haven't done it already on Locked on Buckeyes. Help us not only grow and hit another milestone, but to help more people come across this great show. Locked on Buckeyes is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Also, hit that notification button so you get alerted every time a new show goes live. Speaking of going live, I love when the linebackers are flying around and playing fast and turning up the intensity, because that is what you want from a linebacker. And while those are things I want from a linebacker, the players in the LB room this year give James Laurinaitis the things he wants from players in the room. From Arvell Reese and the different traits that he has that you dream of, to Sonny Styles and his experience, to Payton Pierce and Eli Lee. I mean, there's so many different guys that are in this room that make me happy for what Laurinaitis has done to get those guys in the room, but also gets me excited about the next few years of Buckeye football with Riley Pettijohn and TJ Alford and other guys that are going to be dogs. Can't forget Garrett Stover on the football field. Now, you see, when I list everything out that way, you're like, man, these guys are some dogs. These are 4 and 5 star guys that were elite at high school, that Laurinaitis went all the way out of his way to bring them to Ohio State. And when he has guys that have unique traits, some that are positionless, like Arvell Reese, there are certain things with this room that's going to be scary for the opposition. One of them is the fact that Sonny Styles is in year 4 and that he is going to be playing crazy good ball this year, because Laurinaitis had to pound the table for Sonny Styles just like he did for Arvell Reese to get him in the LB room. Previously, Reese was potentially going to play on the edge, and Laurinaitis had to make sure that he kept him in the linebacker room because he saw the potential that Reese had and say, no. Don't let him play on the edge. Keep him here. Well, Sonny Styles had a year starting at safety, and they said, no. He's a linebacker. And when it came to Reese, Laurinaitis said he can see the field better as an off-ball linebacker, not on the edge. Instead of, if you're watching the YouTube right now, you're going to see my hands. Instead of having a clear view as a linebacker, if you're on the edge, you have a view like this, to where you're literally cutting off part of the field and you're not able to see everything clearly, and that's hindering how productive you can be on the field. For Sonny Styles, he realized, yeah, he's 6'4". And he got to Ohio State, he was about 220. If he stayed at 220, maybe dropped down to 215, safety would have made a whole lot of sense. But if you're 220 coming in, and a lot of guys will add 10 to 15 pounds on the average when they come to Ohio State. Some guys add 20 plus, and Styles is a guy that did that. He's up to, I believe, 243 pounds right now. That's a linebacker body, 6'4", 243. He's playing the wheel backer, the outside backer. He's going to be a dog doing that. But he mentioned that not only did he pound the table for Sonny Styles, which I think was a great thing for Styles' career, but also that the Buckeyes have he views 3 Buckeyes as starters: Sonny Styles, Arvell Reese, and Payton Pierce. Once again, if you're watching the YouTube, you can only see this on YouTube. If you're listening to the audio, thank you for tapping into that, but this is on the YouTube only. All 3 of these guys are like this. They're up at the top, but they're even. And while they are even, those 3 players might be interchangeable. I'm not saying that there's going to be a period where Pierce starts over Reese or Styles. I'm not going that far, but I do think there's a period where the depth chart not being concrete, you can see Payton Pierce play a little bit more with Reese, or Payton Pierce play a little bit more with Styles, or you may see all 3 guys up there in a 4-3 set or a 3-3-5 set, whatever the case may be, because Matt Patricia understands what's in the room, and he has full trust that Laurinaitis is going to lead the room in the way that it needs to be led. Side note, not really a side note, but I like Matt Patricia a lot. The more and more I watch him and listen to him speak, he's really a hard person to not like. He just gets ball, but he also knows how to communicate with people. He also knows how to get trust. He also understands what it takes to be great. He was a great defensive coordinator. Not a great head coach, but he only coached 3 years. He was in Detroit, where most coaches go and their careers are starting to go downward. Well, Patricia's is going upward while coming to Ohio State. And I think that Patricia's going to work wonders with this room. And part of the reason he's going to work wonders, not with the room, with the defense, but part of the room he's going to work wonders with the defense is because of the trust he has in Laurinaitis. And Laurinaitis has control over the rotation. That's not something that Patricia's going to try to come in and strong arm and say, no, do it my way. This is my operation. This is my ship. Things are going to go the way that I say. This isn't what he is trying to do. What Patricia is trying to do is allow the guys leading the rooms to police those rooms. Now, you got to make sure things go through and don't make a boneheaded decision, because that's when Patricia comes in and he lays down the law and says, oh, no, sorry, Bob. We're not doing that. This is how we're going to move going forward. Well, speaking of going forward, while Laurinaitis has control over the room, Laurinaitis also said some certain things about Payton Pierce's toughness that he kind of compared to former linebacker Tommy Eichenberg. Quote, you'd be surprised if he got through a practice without chips off of his face mask. And obviously, that's the way that I think the LB position should be played, end quote. And as I was watching this presser and seeing Laurinaitis just look with his face, I'm thinking, oh, he plays like you used to play. And he plays the way that you want a Mike to play. Well, Arvell Reese is positionless, and Reese can play the Mike. He can play the Will. If there's a 4-3 look, he can play the Sam. He can also play on the edge. I think Payton Pierce is that ideal dog type of Mike linebacker. Put me in the middle and let me rock. I ain't afraid to put my head down there and just get a little dirty, get a little physical, and maybe piss off the opposition like that. Oh, no, I'm not worried about that. I am here to go all out. And that's Payton Pierce. And when he was talking about his ability to kind of potentially have chips come off his face mask, I'm like, oh, that's my kind of guy. That's the kind of stuff I want to see. Laurinaitis also said some specific things about Riley Pettijohn, who recently lost his black stripe. He said this about the talented freshman linebacker, quote, Pettijohn has shown really tremendous growth. Some mental things he's got to improve on, end quote. And the growth part is big. Improving on mental things is expected. You are a true freshman. Ain't nobody expecting you to get it all on day one. Not at all. Same goes for, well, Garrett Stover is not a newcomer, but Garrett Stover, TJ Alford, and Eli Lee. He said Eli Lee has flashed a little bit, that TJ Alford is going to be a really good linebacker. Garrett Stover kind of gets glossed over. I know the last name is one that pops into our head. You know, there's a quarterback, a walk-on quarterback. That's a Stover as well. That's a cousin. It's another one of them cousins that's playing at Ohio State. But while Stover's getting overlooked, and some people might be looking ahead to 2026 and saying, well, if Arvell Reese is gone, the linebackers are going to be Payton Pierce. Oh, let's go ahead and put Pettijohn in there or Alford in there. And they're glossing right over Garrett Stover. Because let's just say, for the sake of this conversation at the end of this segment, that Styles has to go. He can't come back anymore. And Arvell Reese goes. I wouldn't be shocked if the starting linebackers next year were Payton Pierce and Garrett Stover, because not only are they the older ones, they know what Laurinaitis wants. Now, I'm not saying they're going to be the fastest. I'm not saying they're going to be the most physical. I'm not saying they're going to be the only guys who are going to be able to go out there and get their hands dirty. I'm not saying that. But I will put a lot of stock. And in 2026, if Reese goes to the NFL, like I think he should, based off the way that I project he'll play this year, I wouldn't shock me if in 2026 the starting linebackers are Garrett Stover and Payton Pierce. Eli Lee is going to be a dog in the future as well. While he is flashing, that's what you expect from a true freshman. Come out there, flash a little bit, show some things you can do in a hot second or in a hot minute. But you also realize that young man is going to struggle. Where there are a couple of Buckeyes that haven't really been struggling. If they have, it hasn't slowed down their progression during their first times playing at Ohio State. And these are two more players that I'm speaking about that recently lost their black stripes. Thank you all for tapping Locked on Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. Black stripe alert once again for the second day in a row. There were 2 players that lost their black stripes after practice number 5 in fall camp. There are 2 more that lost their black stripes after practice number 6. Those guys are true freshman cornerback Devin Sanchez and transfer running back C.J. Donaldson. And once again, if you are new to being a Buckeye fan and you have not heard about the tradition of losing your black stripe, you go from getting a Buckeye offer in high school to verbally committing in high school to signing your national letter of intent. Cool, you're a Buckeye. You got that commitment accepted. You are signed on the dotted line. You're a Buckeye, but the intensity goes up and almost through the roof when you get on campus because you have to prove it on the field. You proved it in high school, but you got to prove it on the field and prove that you have what it takes to be a Buckeye. That's in your workouts in the winter, in the spring, in the summer. It doesn't matter. On the field in the spring or in the fall. It doesn't matter. You have to prove it on the field, prove it in the weight room, and even prove it as just simply being a human being, an upright human being. You got to prove that you have what it takes to be a Buckeye. And it's no surprise that C.J. Donaldson, transfer running back from West Virginia, lost his black stripe recently. This young man is going to be a dog, and he's a 2,000-yard rusher for his career in his 3 years in Morgantown. He's dropped, I won't say roughly 20 pounds since he stepped on campus. And y'all, it's going to be fun to watch him and James Peoples toe the rock this year. It wouldn't shock me if there were multiple games that Donaldson was a starting running back. And that's not to say that he's going to be the leading rusher, but I think his experience in the Big 12, his experience in pass protection, his experience as a very physical runner and knowing how to work with different quarterbacks and different offensive linemen, I think that's going to speak volumes because against Texas week 1, it wouldn't shock me if Ohio State started guys that were older, more mature, that had played a little bit because Texas is a real team. I mean, you can't just fall into being the number 1 in the preseason coaches poll. You can't do that. Texas is real. So I do think Donaldson, while losing his black stripe, is a guy that is potentially going to be the starter week 1. And I'm not going to shy away from that. They love, and I'm glad that Peoples is on the team, but I still think there is a path for Donaldson to start quite a few games this year. If you were able to look on Twitter or on X or on the Instagram, any Ohio State socials, you would have seen the picture that they posted with Donaldson when he lost his black stripe. There were only 3 individuals there in the picture. Donaldson's in the middle. On our left, looking at the picture on the left side of our screen, it would be Carlos Lachlan, and then the player is James Peoples. One, you can see the physical growth and the muscle that Peoples has put on in the offseason. It is clear that homie has been in the weight room. He's been eating his Wheaties. He's been pumping that iron, doing push-ups for breakfast all the time. You know what? Who else has been doing them push-ups for breakfast? Carlos Lachlan. And he has been on the record. There was times saying, I can't ask the guys in my room to do all this work and to put these weights up and to pump this iron if I ain't doing it too. When homie ain't backing down and not shying away from anything because, man, that dude is yoked up. I've seen him in videos, rep 315 on the bench press. So it's not just something where he is just saying it to fill some space. No, he is truly putting his money where his mouth is. And this young man in Lachlan is going to lead a phenomenal running back room this year. My top 3 guys in this room, Peoples, Donaldson, and Bo Jackson. If Turbo Rogers was an early enrollee, I would tell you that I believe that he would be a consistent player this year. But with him coming in the summer, I just have a hard time believing he is going to be a consistent guy. Now, he may be in special teams or returner at times, which I think as a returner, that'd be great. He'd be the 4th or 5th option because Ohio State has guys like Brandon Ennis and Marlon Graham and Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs. Oh, man. So many guys. They run that thing back to the house. The other player that lost his black stripe is true freshman corner Devin Sanchez. This is another player that has a good opportunity to play this year. And I'm not saying that lightly. I truly believe that there is a clear path for Devin Sanchez to play for the Buckeyes defense. Here where things are going to be a little bit trickier for him. One, congratulations on losing your black stripe. Sanchez, one of the top corners in the class of 2025. being at Ohio State is very, very fortunate. I thought there was a clear path and realistic opportunity for Ohio State to land Sanchez and name Alford. Alford flipped from Ohio State to Oregon. I'll leave that there. You can speculate about why he will make that move. But that was what I thought was going to happen. And if Ohio State was able to land Sanchez and Alford together, oh my goodness. And when I watched Alford's film, I said he might be the best corner. I'm not a huge recruiting guy, so I'm not saying like I've done a deep dive on all the top 20 or top 25 corners in the past 20 years. I haven't done that. When I turn on the film, he is fluid in his movements, which is why whenever he plays and Ohio State plays Oregon again, that's going to be a tough matchup. I think Ohio State will get the best of that one, though. They got the best of Sanchez getting him at Ohio State. And the cornerback room is pretty stacked. It's a lot of really good dudes there. Starters are easily, to me, Lorenzo Styles Jr. at the nickel. The outside corners are going to be IGB and Igmanosin and Jermaine Matthews Jr. But after that, Bryce West, Aaron Scott Jr. Is Devin Sanchez the sixth best corner at Ohio State? It's possible, but if he is, you're in good hands. I mentioned earlier that I was going to predict a little bit about guys that are going to lose their black stripes by the end of the week. And I believe, the list is not in front of me, but I believe that Sanchez and Donaldson were two of the guys on that list. A couple more that I think will lose their black stripes by the end of the week. I'll just release this list once again. If I leave someone off from the previous show, that doesn't mean that they're not going to do it. It's just it's not on paper, and this is how my mind is working right now. I still see a path for Bo Jackson to lose his black stripe by the end of the week. Zion Grady, Epi Cincinnati to lose their black stripes. Eli Lee to lose his black stripe. Go ahead and throw TJ Alford in there as well. Quincy Porter, I think his is done by the end of the weekend. And I think that's it. I don't believe, correct me if I'm wrong. No, that's not true. Throw Tavian St. Clair in that conversation too. I don't think I mentioned it the other day, but to look at it, he has not lost his black stripe yet. He's been having a really good training camp, and I think he is going to be one of those guys to lose his black stripe by the end of the week. It's been a fun show, man. It's been a lot of good stuff right here on this show. A lot of good, big milestone coming up. Oh, really quick side note. This past weekend, there were some extra shows, one on Saturday and one on Sunday. That trend is probably going to change. There will probably be on average 6 shows a week moving forward from this point up until the end of the season, because there's going to be a lot of news, a lot of football to break down, a lot of things coming out. I didn't really react to Ross Bjork saying that this is a good time for that, saying that he expects Ohio State and Penn State to be a noon game. I haven't even looked at the schedule yet, and I don't think Ross Bjork's breaking news or saying anything that most people that follow the sport don't believe. A lot of us believe it's going to be a noon game. And while he is more in the know, I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to realize that Ohio State and Penn State is the biggest draw that weekend. Easily. It's Thanksgiving weekend. Thanksgiving is the day before. Halloween. My brain. It is Halloween weekend. The game is on November 1st. And you're not dealing with Florida, Georgia. You're not dealing with Alabama, Tennessee. I don't think you're even dealing with Alabama, LSU. Not really dealing with any of those games. There's no the Big 12 big matchups. Carolina and Duke, sorry. Colorado and whoever, once again, sorry. Big 12 doesn't have those matchups that will draw Fox to say no to Ohio State and Penn State and having them go there. Michigan and USC, if that was a home game for the Wolverines, wouldn't be bigger than Ohio State, Penn State. Oregon and somebody else would be bigger than Ohio State and Penn State. Fox is in bed, and they are not going away from their desire to play the biggest game of the weekend in that noon slot. Now, my hope is that Fox does something that people don't expect him to do. Move that game to later in the day. If it doesn't interfere with Major League Baseball playoffs, which it might, if it doesn't interfere with that, put it as late as you can. Now, you're not going to put it at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific to accommodate the West Coast crowd. You're not going to do that. Just put it as late as you can in the day. but don't put it at noon. Absolutely not. But it's probably going to be there. I didn't plan on reacting to that statement Ross Bjork made, but here we are. Thank y'all for tapping Locked on Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. You can follow me on any social media platform at jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317@gmail.com. This has been Locked on Buckeyes right here on a Thursday. We'll see you next time.